So when I speak, I like to have lots of audience participation. So anytime you want to shout something out, feel free to do that. You don't have to raise your hand. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So last week I was asked if I could summarize kind of my life story in 6 words. So here's what I came up with. 25 kids later, still not crazy. Because I actually have 25 kids. So, and that is kind of crazy actually. So when we talk about work-life balance or any kind of balance, right, how many of you think about this, right? Lady Justice, it's equal, right? It's exactly the same. Nobody thinks about that? All right. This amazing screen. What about this? Have you seen this? A life balance wheel? Okay, and you're supposed to be perfectly rounded in every area of your life. Okay, and if you're not, then your wheel doesn't roll correctly and it's kind of lumpy. Okay, I think this is not true either. I think it's fake. I think it's false. What about this? It's a steak. It's balanced, right? It's steak with salt on it.
Oh dear.
Isn't it equally balanced?
Looks like a huge steak.
It's not really. It's just a close-up. I made my daughter take that picture. Okay, because sometimes we think balance means equal. Does that look appealing to you? No.
No, that's going to kill me in like 3 seconds.
Right? Nobody's going to eat that. Nobody's going to eat that. So sometimes I think when we talk about balance, we think, well, we have to make things exactly equal. I have to spend exactly the same amount of time with every child, with my spouse, with my job, and I have to sleep sometime. Right, and then you have the rest of life. You have to do errands, you've got to, whatever. You're going to school, so you have classes. And sometimes I think we beat up on ourselves because we think we have to have it exactly equal. Well, I'm going to tell you, my life is not like that. So what's really like, it's kind of like that. So I really like this. This is the goddess Durga, and she has a lot of hands, right? Because she's doing a lot of things. She's actually a warrior goddess, and she fights for family, and so I thought that was a really great one. But it kind of feels like that, right? You've got to make sure you're writing this paper here, and you have a job assignment here, and you've got kids who have this here. I mean, I can just tell you today. So I got up at 5 o'clock this morning. I did some stuff for my job and posted it online today. And then I went to a business meeting in Salt Lake County. And then I picked up a cake on the way here. I'm doing this here. I'm going here home to pick up food to go to my daughter's basketball game. It's her birthday and the last day that they're playing basketball. And I and one other mother are feeding 50 kids. That's my day, right? And it's kind of like that every day.
Do you ever have any downtime?
No. I do, but I have to be very deliberate about it. Okay? How many of you have seen this rock or heard this story, right? Who can tell me what the story is about the rocks? Yes?
If you put the rocks in last, it won't work.
Okay, if you put the big rocks in last, it doesn't work. Okay, so what does that mean? Come on, you guys have read Stephen Covey. What does that mean? Prioritize, okay? So you put your big rocks in first. So the first time I heard this analogy, you put the big rocks in, then you can put smaller rocks in, then you can put sand in, then you can put water in. You know what I thought? Oh, yay, I can do more, right? So I kind of do that. But I do work in time blocks, and I try to work in chunks and say, okay, what's the most important for this week? What's the most important? What are my goals for the quarter? Those kinds of things. So we know this analogy, right? This is my family in 2009. So my priority was not looking made up. That would be true. So if you count, there's 20 kids. Okay, I had 20 kids at home. We had 20 kids at home at our peak. Kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And this was actually not long after our house was set on fire by one of our kids. And we were homeless. So,
Is that your husband in the back?
This is my husband in the back. Yeah. So we were homeless for 3 months with 20 kids. It was really an adventure. So we took that time, we took a long vacation, we went back east, we saw Niagara Falls and Washington, D.C. and some of those things, while the neighborhood kind of got together and did a makeover of our home, which was very kind. But let me tell you, it was rough. doing that with that many kids. And we had some things that did not go smoothly, and we didn't want to talk about that trip for at least 6 months, maybe a year. Now we can laugh about it, but then it was like the vacation from you know where. So that was 2009, and at that same time, with 20 kids at home, I was homeschooling. I was involved in politics at the state level. So I was not in office yet, but I had already started my Holly on the Hill blog, and I had already worked for 5 years and gotten a bill passed that let midwives practice in the state of Utah, which I also am a midwife. So this is us last fall. So they get older, right? We've had our daughter in the wheelchair has passed away. Several of our kids are married. We have grandkids, and now it's 6-9 months later. I've got a daughter who's engaged. I have another grandbaby on the way. So the family just keeps growing, right? But this is a little bit different, right, than 2009. So seasons, right? Seasons. You can do things in a way, right? So how many of you have seen this? Okay. That's kind of my career path too. So when I was young, when I was a teenager, I was like, I want to be an obstetrician. And then I took my first college math class, and I'm like, I'm done. So I became a nurse, and I graduated as a nurse with an associate degree in 1984. I was 19 years old. So imagine being in the hospital. You got a 19-year-old taking care of you, baby. But I was an RN, and I worked as an RN. So I thought, okay, I kind of have a plan. And I wanted to get married. I didn't meet my husband quite at 19. I was 21 when I got married, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so old. Now I'm like my girls, no, you go off and do stuff before you get married, because it lasts a long time. And I love my husband, it's great. But a year later, we had our first baby, and within 2.5 years, I had 3 biological children and 1 miscarriage. And then we heard a news story. Ceausescu had been executed in Romania. This was Christmas Day, 1989. And a few weeks later, stories started coming out that there were kids in orphanages, and I did not know that orphanages existed in the world in 1989, right? Early 1990. So when we first heard that, we thought, oh my gosh, we should adopt. And we didn't know anything about it, and my husband changed jobs. We moved from Washington State. We came down to Utah. This is again 1990. We bought our first house. We have 3 little kids. Our second child was disabled. And Christmas, right before Christmas of 1990, there was a 2020 news story, and Barbara Walters was on TV talking about these kids in orphanages and how some people had gone over and adopted. And my husband looked at me and said, I think we need to go. I'm like, yeah. And a few weeks later, I was in Romania. So my husband was home. He had to work, right? And this was way before the internet. So we were staying in a place, we had no phone. We couldn't buy light bulbs. We couldn't buy toilet paper. It was intimate body searches when you got off the airplane coming into Romania, because the Iron Curtain had just fallen, and it was very, very different. We saw ladies carrying sticks on their backs, old women, right, that you see pictures of from the 1800s, but this was 1990. And I went out to a village once to look at or to talk to some people about adoption, and it wasn't paved, and this would have been February, and the mud was about this deep, and it was about 36 degrees, and their kids were running around barefoot and no coats, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So we started down the adoption path. I came home with 2 little girls that time. One of them had Down syndrome. And started down that adoption path, came home, told my husband, I've seen what an orphanage is like. They're horrible places for kids to be. And if we can adopt, and make a difference for another child, I want to do that as much as we can. And it turned out to be 20 kids. And so I gave birth to 4, we have 20, and then number 25 is my granddaughter, but we have full legal custody of her, and we'll be raising her until she's an adult. So welcome to the next phase of life that we did not expect, right? It's this other dip thing. So At that point, I was a nurse. I had just become an adoptive mom. I came back. I tried to work in the hospital after, and I had 5 kids, 4 and under, 2 of them with disabilities. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I quit the hospital job. I started teaching childbirth education classes. So you have these dips. Then I became a midwife, which is something different, right? And I did that for a while. And then in 2000, a midwife in St. George was arrested for practicing medicine without a license. Well, I thought the law was wrong, not the midwife was wrong. And we found out that midwives in Utah who were not certified nurse midwives practicing in the hospital, but the home birth midwives, were not covered under the law. So everything we did was a felony. Yay, that's fun to find out. So I and a few other women worked on this project, and it took us like 4 years, 5 legislative sessions, and we finally got a bill passed, and that's been in place since 2005. So, from midwife to political activist, grassroots organizer, I got to work with all kinds of women and their families who only had maybe one point in common, and that was they believed midwives should be able to practice legally. All kinds of religious backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, political backgrounds. We had an agreement. We only talk about one thing, and that's midwifery, right? Because everything else was too controversial among the group. So, kind of learned that. And then started writing a blog because I needed to stay on the Hill. So in 2006, nothing happened. 2007, somebody introduced a bill that would have basically gutted our entire law, and we were able to kill that. 2008, they reintroduced the same bill that would have gutted the law again. And this time we said, okay, we're gonna create rules that govern home birth midwives, but I also am committed to not leaving the Hill. So from 2009 to 2012, I was on the Hill every legislative session just blogging. Well, not 2011, but I'll tell you that in a second. So I started blogging because I was bored. And I was bored because I was sitting there not having a specific political bill to follow, but wanting to make sure that nobody pulled any surprises on us. So I became Holly on the Hill. And I ended up branding that across all social media networks that I have, everything except for Pinterest, because believe it or not, somebody else got that first. So I'm Holly R on the Hill on Pinterest. But everywhere else I'm Holly on the Hill, and it's just kind of alliterative, fun, I'm on Utah's Capitol Hill, right? It's a little hard to move away from it now that I'm trying to steer away from it because I did brand it that way. But in 2011, early January, I got a call from one of my friends who worked on the Hill, and he said, Holly, you want to listen to this very carefully because it affects you. He said, your representative does not actually live in his district. And I knew immediately that that meant he had to resign, because the Utah Constitution says if you are on the state level that you have to live in the district that you represent. So within about 30 seconds, I decided I was going to run for that seat. And I didn't have to ask anybody. Nobody had to ask me. I'm like, I'm in. And it was a roller coaster of about 3 weeks. And special election, I won with 62% of the vote, got up on the Hill, sworn in on a Monday, and on Thursday, my baby died. So it was a rough first week, right? It was a rough legislative session. So that baby, she was our youngest, and she was born missing most of her brain. And when we adopted her, we knew that her life would be short, that it wouldn't be, she wouldn't live a really long time, but we didn't have any warning that it would happen that week or that night. So that was really rough, and it was a really heated legislative session. So it still gave me a real insight into lawmaking. And I didn't run the next session or the next cycle because I was helping somebody run against Senator Orrin Hatch and got him into a primary where we lost in the primary. But when I've tried to go back, I've lost. I've tried twice and I've lost both times. So I've run and won and run and lost, and winning is more fun. Okay? So from there, then it was like, okay, well, gosh, gosh, now what? I kind of did the blogging thing. I had done that, and I had done adoption blogging. I'd done family blogging. I've been blogging for almost as long as blogs have existed in one way or another. And I was trying to figure out, gosh, what do I do now? And I had somebody recruit me and say, can you come be communications and marketing director for a governor's office? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So for a year, I was communications and marketing director for the governor's office of energy development. Totally different field, right? Super interesting. Trying to find out about the energy resources and stuff we have in Utah. And then it was like, wow, I don't have a bachelor's degree. I really should go back to school. And so at the same time that I was working full time, I started back to school and I came to UVU. And at UVU, you have to kind of pick a major, right? I already have an associate degree and I had a number of credits beyond that. And I was like, okay, I really have to decide what I want to do. And I knew it wasn't nursing, actually. And I started in speech. I started in communication with an emphasis on speech that lasted one semester. When I had a professor say, you really should be in PR, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right up my alley. So I graduated last April with a degree in PR with honors, right? And I was 51 years old. Now I'm 52. So it's just weird, right? Because I was a nurse, and then I was a midwife, and then I was a politician, and now I'm doing stuff in communication, and I really love it a lot. But one of the things that happens is that your path a lot of times is this way, right? The days of you getting a job and you retiring 40 years later with a gold watch and a plaque from the same company, they're gone, right? Those days are gone. So I have a son who works for Google right now. He knows that that's not a permanent job for him. It's a good job, it's a great job right now, but he also knows that over his career, he's only 27, over his career, he's gonna change companies and maybe even fields a couple of times. So many of you will do that, right? You'll change careers, you'll change fields a number of times. I've seen a statistic that says something along the lines of about 44% of people who have a college degree are employed in something different than their degree is in. Does that make sense to you? Does that resonate with you? Give me an example of somebody maybe you know, or somebody, a job that you have or that you've looked at that isn't related to a degree. Yes.
Well, in my family, I have an uncle who is a principal. Well, he was a principal up in Alaska, and then he became a dean of something at one of the universities there. Yeah. Anyway, he had his degree in business, so yeah, he didn't really use it all that much. Yeah, interesting, huh? Yeah. There's some great advantages to getting a college education, even if you don't work in that field. Give me another example, Bonnie. Not to put you on the spot.
Not to put me on the spot. No, I know several people that have got degrees in business or have gotten degrees in even the arts and have decided they wanted to teach, and so they've gone back through the Utah State Office of Education and had to take a few more classes and
gotten a teaching certificate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend who went to the University of Chicago Law School, and between his second and his third year, he's like, I hate this. And his wife is like, finish up. So he finished, and he took the bar, and he never one day has practiced law as an attorney. He is a business consultant. He went to work for Bain Consulting right out of law school, and now he's a consultant for Intermountain Healthcare, and he does speaking all around the country on pension reform, right? But he realized $100,000 later in debt that he hated being an attorney, and he didn't want to do it. So he didn't.
Anybody our age or older who works at all in the internet industry didn't do that in college.
Right.
My husband is a web analyst, and I talk to my kids all the time. I'm like, when your dad was a little boy, you wanted to be a web analyst. The internet wasn't invented until we were in college.
Right.
So
yeah.
We weren't planning on that when we were in kindergarten.
So my husband is a computer programmer, and that's what he graduated in 1988. So that was a long time ago. But when I know, right? So it's Space Invaders. Think that. It's that era. Okay, those computers and literally floppy disks, right? But even before that, when he was at BYU Idaho, he was learning to program on cards. They were literally punch cards. How many of you seen Hidden Figures? Right? You have to line up the punch cards. He said if you dropped them, your project was over because there was no way to sort them. That's what their final was. Can you get get a mainframe computer to run off your series of punch cards, right? So obviously, it took me 25 years, no joke, 25 years to get him to throw out his computer science textbooks because he thought he might need them someday. Okay? Okay. So I love him, but he's a little bit of a pack rat. So anyway, so my point to you is professionally, you're going to have many opportunities probably. Some of them you can create yourself. Some might be imposed upon you. Like I said, my husband works in the computer field. He has been laid off. I expected it as just part of what happens in that field. When it did happen, though, it was rough. It was really rough for him. It felt really personal, right? Just like losing an election feels really personal. But he was quickly hired onto a different job. But those types of things happen. And preparing the college education part, that prepares you for being able to go out and say, okay, maybe I could start my own business. Maybe I could do catering. Maybe I could do consulting. Maybe I could be a life coach. Maybe I could, do whatever it is that kind of floats your boat. I think sometimes we get caught up on the follow your passion thing. I love that, right? I love to follow my passion and stuff. But at some point, you have to make a living, right? But every example I can think of, there's always somebody proving me wrong, right? So if I say you cannot make a living off of playing video games, you can actually, if you become a gamer, right? If you become a game programmer, there's even some contests you can enter that have big monetary prizes, right? So I wouldn't say that that's the most stable field, but it's there. So my oldest son, when he was 14, we were still in that homeschooling phase, and we spent a summer volunteering at This Is the Place State Park. Wanted all my kids at the time to have some experience with, just dressing up basically and learning about pioneer ancestry. Well, he ended up in the blacksmith shop. That was 16 years ago, and today he owns his own blacksmith shop up Eden Canyon, past Ogden, and he literally makes reenactment stuff for people. He makes hinges, he makes tools, he makes rings, he's doing puzzles right now that he's selling. He's an artisan craftsman, and he's a blacksmith. And it's one, like literally when he was an older teen, I was like, you gotta find a job that'll support a family. You just can't do this. And he's like, this is what I want to do. You need a job that'll support your family. This is what I want to do. So he has a wife, he's got 2 kids and one on the way, and he owns his own home and he owns his own shop, and who am I to say that you can't make a living as a blacksmith? Okay, so I just talked about passion. So discover your calling. So one of the things I think is innate in all of us is this: we feel like there's something we're supposed to do, right? Whether it's be a mom, or it's something broader, something really precise, or something kind of vague. But this is Oprah Winfrey. I believe there's a calling for all of us. I know that every human being has value and purpose. And the real work of our lives is to become aware and awakened and to answer the call. Okay, does that ring true for anybody? A little few, okay, good. It does for me too, right? And I think if you've had times where you've felt like you're just spinning your wheels and this is really not the thing for you, that's a time where you're not being true to that calling. So I said I worked for a year as a communications and marketing director for a government office. I left because it was crushing my soul. So I realized that I'm in a privileged position to say I have the opportunity to walk away from a job. But I did because it was, the work was fine and the people were fine, but the pace was not right for me. I'm a lot more of a go-getter. So for example, the first day I got to work at that job, they're like, would you write this press release? I'm like, yeah. 20 minutes later, I give them the press release, and they're like, we were thinking like next week sometime. And I'm like, well, now what do I do? So there was a lot of time that I felt could have been used better. And for me, it was just one where I was just like, I just can't do 40 hours a week with my behind in the chair not doing actually anything that's very valuable. So I left. So that's kind of me. If you haven't been able to tell, I have ADD. What a shocker. But the next thing is to find your voice. So one of the things that I love is to write. I love to write. And I know not everybody loves to write. And even people who do a lot of writing, not all of them love it, but I love it. And I think there's a lot of ways to have a voice. So some of it is in writing, some of it is in public speaking, some of it is in singing, some of it is in artistic ways, right? You have a voice, you have a way to express yourself. And this is Stephen R. Covey. So how many of you are familiar with the 7 habits? Okay, how many of you are familiar with the 8th habit? He wrote a book called The 8th Habit, and this is it. The 8th habit is to find your voice and then help others find theirs. And he wrote an entire book on it, right, before he died. So find your voice, inspire others to find theirs, and don't ignore that longing to make a difference. So I do a fair amount of humanitarian work because I also love that. When we were adopting, we involved our kids in it. So we've had 6 boys become Eagle Scouts. We've got 2 more kind of in the pipeline. And every one of their projects, except for one, had to do something with like international, either international adoption, international aid agencies, those types of things. Actually, except for 2. So 4 of them did international ones. One did memorial boxes for babies who died in the hospital that we would give to the hospital, especially small, very small babies. And the other one did Christmas for 75 people at the Developmental Center in American Fork. So it's been something that we've done as a family, humanitarian work. So I took my first international humanitarian trip in 2006, early 2006, and I took my oldest son with me. And we went to Kenya. And one of the things that I learned there is that we really have it good here, right? That we really have it good. I met a little boy who had infection running down his cheek from a burst eardrum that had been that way for 2 months. And he was probably going to be deaf by the time it healed itself. We met kids where we literally pulled larvae out of their feet that had come from the sand. And we just think, gosh, you know, I complain if I don't have enough toilet paper, right? And so it really gave me a good perspective, kept me in a good perspective, I think, of seeing, you know, how other people live in this world. And a year ago, about a year and a half ago, I took a newly graduated daughter of mine to Africa with me. And I have been before, I had been multiple times, and she had never been, and I knew it would be life-changing, and she was kind of like, oh, I just want to get to Europe. I want to see Paris. I want to see Rome, right? But we went to Africa, and we served there together, and she said it's changed her life. And it has, right? She's very aware of what we have here. And now I have some kids are like, no, I'm not going to go. And I was like, I wish I could make you, because they really could use a dose of gratitude every now and again. But there are people who create these agencies, who create these programs, and that's the way they share their voice. Some of them don't do a lot of public speaking. Some of them don't do writing, right? But they do this outreach because they just feel it in their hearts so much. How many of you are aware of Days for Girls? Okay. Days for Girls was created by people who realized that girls in Africa especially were not going to school 1 month out of the year, or 1 week out of the month, because they were having their periods. And because they didn't have supplies, they couldn't go to school. They couldn't take care of their sanitary needs. They were mocked by the other kids. And so these girls were not getting an education. And something so simple as providing a washable, disposable pad, a couple of pads, changed their lives, right? And so now this organization partners with many international aid organizations, and they're getting pads all over the world. So that's a way to follow your voice. We have plenty of time, so I want to hear from you guys. What's something that you're really interested in, passionate about, and would like to do more of? You in the purple. I saw you looking at me.
So I have a question for videography.
Awesome.
I hope let's do more. I do a few weddings here and there, but
you want to do more with that? Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great way to express your voice. Okay, what? Yes.
So I volunteer with the crisis line here in Utah County. So I plan to go into mental health. So if I could
Awesome.
maybe find a way to make it more of an issue here in Utah?
Raise awareness.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Yes.
For me, it was this actually, when I was down in Snow College, it actually, because throughout high school and middle school, I always wanted to go into music because I really loved the opportunities that I got. I was playing the saxophone for 6+ years, but then after my mission, that kind of killed off all of the things that I've worked on. But I tried to get back into it because I heard that if you get it back together, then you'll be good again. But then just one day, I knew for a fact that music wasn't gonna be one of them. So then I realized that my second favorite thing to do was actually going into IT and fixing computers, fixing the Xbox 360s, fixing iPods, basically fix everything. And that's what I'm going into right now is IT, network administration, and the music thing, that's for fun. So
But that's awesome, right? That's awesome. I didn't stay on the same path, so I've quit stuff a lot, right? Yes.
I can relate to that, like quitting stuff a lot, because you're like, I'm just wasting my time. It's just, what am I doing? And I've had a lot of those moments, and like right now, I feel like I am realizing what I need to do, but it's something that I told myself I never wanted to do. Like I've always hated writing, but I've always been really good at it.
Interesting.
And now it's like, okay, I should write because I have all these ideas and I want people to hear them out. And so I'm writing I want to write a book about stories about people in a religious context.
That's fantastic.
So.
Yeah, way to go, way to go. So one of the other things that I've done is just started to volunteer locally at the Tabitha's Way Food Pantry in American Fork, which I do with Butterfly. So I go on Wednesday nights, and one of the reasons I go, again, is because even though I travel internationally and I'm trying to travel once a year, which is hard, but we make it a priority, so we make it happen, it is to know that locally there are also needs, right? And I've been able to learn, not only have I learned the facts and figures about how many people in Utah County, there's 78,000 at the poverty line or below, we've got about 15% that are food insecure, what all that means, but what I've really done is met the people. Right? I've met the people who have the real stories, who come in and say, my husband's a veteran, but he's disabled, and we cannot make ends meet. We just can't do it, right? They have 5 kids, she has a job, but they have more month than they have money, those types of things, okay? All right, anybody else on The Voice before we go on to the next one? Yes?
With me, one thing I'm really passionate about doing a presentation tomorrow. On early syndrome, it's like, just a slight sensitivity, gives you headaches and you can't concentrate because you'll be in class and you go home and take a 3-hour nap.
Yeah.
Because the lights, you can stay for like 15 minutes tops.
Right.
And before I got my lenses, the diagnosis, I was studying for 15 minutes, now I'm up to 3 hours.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So something that you know a lot about and are passionate about. Okay, live a bigger story. So, to me, that's kind of the third step. How many of you are familiar with Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning? Okay, who can summarize that for me? Right there, can you do that?
Probably not.
Okay. Anybody summarize? Yes, ma'am.
Viktor Frankl was a survivor from a Nazi concentration camp.
Okay.
And he talks about his experiences with also psychology and the aspects of enduring that.
Right. He was a psychologist before he was interned in a concentration camp, and as he was there, he saw people die. He saw a lot of people die. And one of the things that was interesting to him was who died. Right? So toss out, what was the mental status of the people he saw die? Not the people who were murdered, because they all were, right? But the people who kind of just gave up and died. What was their mental status? Do you remember from his book, or what? Pessimistic. Okay, I'm never getting out of here. There was also another one. What's the other one? Optimistic. Unrealistically optimistic. I'll be out by Christmas, right? Christmas passes, they're not out. Easter passes, summer passes, they're back to the next Christmas. And eventually they're like, it's never going to happen. So the people who approached it with a sense of meaning, were the ones who survived. So he said he saw people who knew they were dying. They knew they were dying. They took their last bread and spread it around the other prisoners who were not yet on death's door. So when he got out, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And in it, he actually ended up creating a whole series of psychological thought, psychological theory, and that is that you need to have meaning in your life, right? Is that we all will do better when we're reaching outside of ourselves. So here's his quote: being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is and the more he actualizes himself. Okay, that's Viktor Frankl. Now, there's some women in the room, and men don't usually have this problem. But women, when you hear give yourself, does that mean that you exhaust and deplete yourself in the service of others?
Usually.
Right? I mean, culturally, that's kind of what we say, right? You lose yourself in the service of others. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't mean actually lose yourself. Okay? You protect yourself. So here's some of the things that I do. And I will tell you, somebody asked me last week, do you ever get overwhelmed? All the time. I get overwhelmed all the time. But it's like getting thrown in the deep end of the pool. So you either sink or you swim, and eventually I dog paddle to the surface, and it's like, okay, I do it again, right? So when I was adopting, when I was adding kids, my big measure of when I was ready to, take the next step and add more kids was when I could go to the grocery store and not freak out. That was it. So if I can take 2 carts, one full of kids, one full of groceries, and not have a heart attack, then I was good. Okay, so productivity tips. You start the day off right. How many of you have heard about the Miracle Morning? Okay, so that's a book I'd recommend for you. It's called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrond. But he talks about getting up at 5:15 in the morning, right, every day. But he also talks about why, right, and the things that you do during that time. So you have some time for silence. You have some time for meditation and reflection. I taught meditation as a midwife and a childbirth educator for a long time, but I didn't start doing it until a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. And then I find that to be time where if I say a prayer, that's me talking to God. Meditation is when God can talk to me. Gratitude is also like a miracle elixir. It truly is something that can really change your outlook on life. Now, not all our kids are easy. We have kids from orphanage that come from very traumatic backgrounds. I've been given a black eye by one of the kids. It was a girl, actually. And called all kinds of names, very difficult sometimes. But if I focus on gratitude, it shifts everything for me. And that's why people talk about having a gratitude journal, right? And focusing on gratitude. And one of the things that I was interested to find is that people have done research on gratitude and how gratitude changes our outlook. So if there's nothing else that you take from today, I would recommend that you practice the art of gratitude, right? You practice gratitude. Then you end the day right. I never do this, by the way, but I don't. I stay up until I cannot keep my eyes open 1 second longer, and then I go to bed. But if you will end your day right, you can look over what you accomplished that day. You can plan for the next day, right? You can get to sleep on time and actually get a healthy amount of sleep. Don't do what I do. But end the day right. And keep perspective. So it's kind of a mind game a little bit to say, is this going to matter in 5 years? Will I care in 5 years if my kid goes to school with mismatched shoes? Probably not, right? And will I care in 5 years that somebody had a negative comment on my blog today? Probably not, right? So that is helpful, right? Is that you have the ability, whether it's somebody that you enlist as a support person or you do it yourself, but to kind of step outside the situation and say, okay, how could this, how could I turn this to something good? How could this be something that I learned from? We've buried 4 daughters actually, and it doesn't get easier, right? It doesn't get easier. It's really horrible. But the thing that I learned after the first one was that I would survive, and that someday, I would be able to be happy again. Someday I would laugh again. Someday I wouldn't wish I was dead again, right? Just because the grief is so overwhelming. So the one gift I got is to know that it would end. And then it gave me immense, I think, empathy and compassion towards people going through deep grief-filled processes, because I've felt it, right? Whether it's a divorce or it's a death or it's even a loss of a job, those types of things, I understand what it's like to feel like the whole world is over, right? That everything has come crashing down on you. And now I have the perspective to say, okay, someday I'll be through this part. For me, an important piece is to keep learning. So I not only am a student right now at a university, but I love podcasts. I love to listen to books on Audible, right? I consume between 50 and 100 books a year, non-textbooks. And I do it because of Audible. I can't sit and physically read that much time, but I spend a dang amount of time in the car driving people around, right? It's the mom thing. Like, what the heck? But the current book I'm reading right now, listening to, is Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and it's in her own voice. This is not a new book, but it's the first time I finally listened to it, and it's like, wow, this is really powerful. So I've listened to 6 hours of it in the last 2.5 days. So anyway, service, someone, and then and self-care, right? So we have like 30 seconds left. I'd like to know from you really quickly, what are some of the things you do for self-care? You're busy, you're a dad. What do you do to take care of you?
Well, I like to unwind a little bit, which includes a little TV, maybe a video game.
Yep.
And then I go to bed early, get up early.
Good.
So.
Good. That's good. Both of you. Go ahead.
I go to Target.
Target? Do you actually shop there as a retail therapy, or you just get to walk around?
I just shop there as retail there on my own.
Yeah.
Just
right?
myself.
Yeah. Right. Well, how many moms do you see in the store going, this is my only time alone. I will be back in an hour and a half. Yes.
Well, I started doing dates for like my with my kids and obviously a spouse, but I realized for self-care, I'm like, I need to be on this list, you know?
That's
so
right.
every month, like this
That's
is one
right.
of my outings for just me to come and learn.
That's great. I applaud you. Awesome. Okay, so I just want to end just by saying you're not going to find balance, right? There are times in your life that are going to feel like they're really out of balance. How many of you have ever had a newborn in your house? Okay, there is no balance. There's no sleep, and there's no controlling that baby's schedule, right? You're at the mercy of this little tiny cute human being. But eventually they learn to sleep through the night. Eventually they get potty trained. Eventually they go to school. Eventually they graduate and go off and do stuff on their own. But what I'm saying to you, and what I hope you will take home, is you can have a really wonderful life of integration, as long as you will keep first things first. So my family always comes first, even if they don't always get the most amount of time. And then to have the long-term goals in place and keep working on them. If it takes you until you're 51 to graduate, you're still going to be 51, whether you get your degree or not, right? So anyway, thank you for coming, and this has been great. Thanks.